Okay, so Loon release. So we're starting the Loon release. We're starting sprint 1. It's a 3-week sprint. So starting today and ending on June 23rd. So let's go ahead and get started. We'll look through Jira. We'll start with platform.
Can you refresh actually? Do you mind?
Yeah, something. I'll make it bigger too. No one ever complains about the font, but it looks fine on my monitor, and then I look up and I have no idea how you managed to see anything. Yeah. But no one ever complains. So I guess I can jump out. Okay.
That's John's personal requirement.
That should be. Hey, I heard personal requirement.
I don't know.
Exactly.
Okay, let's get started.
I can go first, since I have most of these issues in here. They're probably not prioritized correctly, but there's a couple of, I guess they're childless bugs in test on just about like usability and allowing people with slightly different setups to easily get up and running. And those were some good starter tasks for new interns. There's another ticket, which is updating the performance white paper. This has been kind of something that you've been working on for a while. Hopefully we'll finish it this sprint. And then I added a new story, which is add a continuous node restart test to the HA suite. This is similar to what the Sienna folks are running, but we'd like to run something here in the office. That's all I had.
Okay, Jordan?
Yeah, so pretty much for this sprint, my big thing is the Copycat 2.0 upgrade. So this is, for anyone that was in the TST meeting a while ago, this has a lot of the stuff that I talked about in there, just major stability improvements and some changes that are needed for ISSU. So this is really the start of the ISSU stuff, but I want to get it in as early as possible so we can have time to make sure it's stable by the end of the release. And so yeah, that's most of what I'll be doing.
So you've got it as 8 story points, which will be the whole sprint.
Yep.
Are you planning to add tasks?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, as you pull it apart?
Yep.
Okay.
Quick question, Jordan. Is
Sure.
there, you know, the ISSU will primarily comprise of the portable serialization and then some sort of a coordinator for managing the upgrade.
Right.
It clearly, I think you're the person to do the portable serialization, especially since you already have an idea on how to do it and it falls in your expertise. But what about the coordinator? Is that something that you think you need help with? And that's something that could potentially start in parallel? Or would that be jumping the gun? What do you think?
I think it's jumping the gun. I think I'll probably be able to do it just fine. And definitely within the, I think I'll still be able to get it all done in this movie.
Okay,
so,
just making sure. I want to make sure that you get all the help that you need, which includes, you know, getting help or getting no help. So
sure.
Just make sure that don't hesitate to ask for.
No, we'll revisit in the next planning session when I plan to start doing that stuff.
Excellent. Okay, thanks. And one item that I just added recently is that this is actually redigested Luca's personal requirement, something he's been asking for quite a long time. And to make a number of the developer/test tools available at ONOS runtime.
Yeah.
Some detailed description on it. We can please feel free to edit the list of tools that should be included in this. But I think it's something we ought to do. My original thought was that we would do it as a separate distributable package, but I think after talking with Ray and Jonah about it just informally, I think we should just package it and all start. Yeah. I think that's something we can do this, at least start on it this sprint, and if you need to toss more tools into it, we can do that as necessary later.
I have mixed feelings about it, but I tend to think that it's definitely a gap in what we provide, and it would be nice to provide some sort of lifeline to people who are trying to install and deploy the system, whatever form it takes.
Well, this is what that provides, right?
And I guess another thing is it definitely helps having sort of an officially recommended procedure for installation, and also having people who actually understand how it's supposed to work sort of review that procedure and make sure that it's correct, and that it works and it's kind of documented also, because the documentation that like Luke and I wrote on installation was basically kind of based on reverse engineering it rather than having kind of a priori knowledge of how it's actually supposed to work.
Sure. And so maybe, so let me take a note on this. And are you going to be in tomorrow or Wednesday?
Yeah.
Because I was wondering maybe if I could tap you for some help in that area. That would be.
Yeah, we'll chat.
Okay. All right.
Who's going to do this work?
Right now, I didn't assign to anybody. It's something I could either start, or maybe, I don't know if Ray is interested. You can chat.
You can sign it to me for now. I think it's the kind of thing that a lot of different people have different input on.
Or we can certainly start and fine tune from there.
Exactly.
We'll go over the bug affecting Jonah. Bob?
It affects versions none.
That's kind of my favorite bug, but I think it was fixed a week or two ago, so you can probably close it out.
Description?
It's from email.
Just kind of begging for it.
We'll make Jonah close it out.
Yeah,
I'll sign it to Jonah.
definitely.
Okay. Do we?
Yeah, so since Stephen's not online, I can cover this briefly. So there's still some continuing work on the topology 2 that we'll be tackling. But this sprint is really the start of us consolidating the UI framework. Stephen wants to get some tools in place to do things like minification of included JavaScript files and CSS files and so on. And then I'm going to be focusing more on fixing or enhancement requests to the UI specifically for helping troubleshoot loose spine topologies. So starting in that area. Although actually what's not listed on here is security bug number 1, which I'm spending some time looking at and implementing a fix for.
Yeah, so there's a few security bugs we have outstanding. Grace period for security bugs is usually 90 days. And so we're hitting the 90-day limit in this sprint. So we've got some folks working to try to resolve some of the bugs. So those should be done in this sprint, and then we'll get those back to 1.8, 1.9, 1.10, and then I think we said 1.8. And then, so once we have a 1.8 build, all of the core folks know to pull it in. But,
So did you just say we're going to backport them to 1.10, 1.9, 1.8?
Yes.
Okay.
I have kind of a question. Is there a list of kind of criteria somewhere on how to differentiate, a so-called security bug from other bugs that are just bugs? Because most of the bugs tend to sort of result in things like denial of service or the system stopping working and stuff. And how do you, what are the criteria? Are they documented somewhere?
I don't know that we documented the criteria.
Yeah, because something like I was going to say something like, cross-site scripting. That doesn't necessarily, to me, seem like a particularly high priority bug because, you're already on the management network in some sense. It's which you assume is secure. That is to say, if your management network's not secure, you're pretty not secure in general.
Yeah, so right now we just perform sort of individual discretion on some of these bugs, and there's few of them enough that that sort of manual review makes it possible. I think we may need to have more straight definition down the line.
Might be a good idea. I mean, at the end of the day, I think there's not a huge difference between regular bugs and security bugs, but if you're going to try to make that distinction, it'd be nice to have some sort of objective criteria.
Sure.
Anyone have any questions?
I think the only thing was Sarah thought some of these were going to be on the core Jira because the fabric stuff is going to be on the core Jira. So I clarified that it was an ONOS Jira, so you may want to link up with him.
Okay.
And then I don't think Soon was on, right? This is network virtualization. Okay, so I think Soon was still going to work on this while he's in Korea. So they're currently working on getting a virtual gateway working. Create host intent for virtual network, and then distributed flow rule. So the main three things was getting virtual gateway finished, getting the OF agent finished in this release, and then the OpenStack integration. Those are the three things that the network virtualization folks are focused on for this release. And then dynamic configuration?
Yeah, I haven't had a chance to get hold of Patrick. What should be part of this sprint should be the compilation of open config models and associated with it, and it takes into the compile that's required. But I have not received confirmation on that. So.
Okay. Deployment?
For me, just the base condition part of VPIs with network configured. It's like the configuration from VPIs might be faster than the interface configuration. So the VPIs cannot find the interface because the interface haven't loaded into the store. So I'll try to figure out how to fix it.
Okay.
The other
Yeah, so I added a task. Some of our tests are intermittently failing where we're using the EC maps for the net config. So it's just adding retries and we're getting the state.
Okay. Second obstacle?
Yeah, so kind of when you were started as a bug report, the very first one actually led to properly fix it, do a couple of extra tasks to get some proper resource tracking in our optical compiler. Okay, so that's essentially so the first, third, fourth are all together. I think the Polaris is already done. Or it's under review. Same for the Lockheed circuit extension. They still don't from that, but they just didn't get merged. The other, I guess, big ticket item is the multi-layer resource tracking. So this is a problem we've been dealing with for a number of months, maybe even years. I think there's a lot of parallels to draw with the intent domain. Subsystem, call it like that. But it's something, we have a consumer for it. It's something we start tackling. I think it's probably the last big ticket problem that we have in the multi-layer solution as it is right now. I won't say we're solving everything, but it's just the last remaining problem that we're struggling with.
Okay. And then from a dependency standpoint, design reviews,
I'm sorry, what was this?
dependency standpoint, design reviews, are you guys bringing those up in the TST?
Yeah, we might actually, I think first we want to do some design and see if we can come up with a solution that will work for us, and then see if it works for other people or if we suggest it. But I think we'll just keep it internal, come up with our own solution that works, and then reach out.
Yeah, I think
We're not going to write any code so far. It's just paper.
Okay.
Hey, Mark, what became of the NTT requirements?
Yeah, so I guess there were two things. This is one thing. The other thing is all more or less dynamic and sync related. So I had a chat with everybody this morning. I've been pushing NTT. I really wanted to get our own brigade started, even if that brigade, all I was doing was feeding to the dynamic config brigade or interacting with it. But they, they keep on discussing internally, whatever that means. So I don't know. The list is still there, but this is probably the hardest item that was on the list for us. Apart from they have lots of nice to have in the dynamic config, but this was a more fundamental problem.
was it something directly tracked on that spreadsheet when they had?
Yeah.
Or was it just a derivative?
So maybe it wasn't worded like this, but this was part of it. This was kind of the fundamental problem that we solved. And I think it's a problem that's related to every multi-layer kind of support.
So, Mark, I didn't quite hear what you were saying. What is the what's this fundamental problem that needs to be solved? Is that the configurable Lambda query, or which one is this?
So
Or
it's about the bottom ticket. So essentially, in a multi-layer network, the concept of reusable resources is essentially what we are not doing properly right now. We kind of do it in an ad hoc way, with some kind of without getting too specific, some domain knowledge, but I think we could come up with a generic solution where the top level intent consumes lower layer intent and intent resources. And tracking that properly is essentially what needs to happen. Think of bandwidth. I set up a tunnel. Then on top of that, I'm going to have intents that rely on that tunnel. What
right.
will happen? That tunnel goes away, then all those top levels there and recompile or whatever. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes total sense. What I didn't understand was the connection with configuration that you were talking about.
No, so I think that was more to do with Bill's question. So we're working with NTT to
Oh, I see.
a multi-layer ONOS, a multi-layer network run with ONOS. The kind of requests or feature requests they made from us, on one hand, had to do with the multi-layer resource tracking. On the other hand, were kind of add-ons or extra features for the dynamic config subsystem. So
Okay, that makes sense. I can hear you better now too. So that's
okay,
good.
yeah, I got closer. Sorry, I'm a little late.
What is being requested from dynamic config?
I'm sorry.
What is being requested from dynamic config?
Quite a lot actually.
Yeah, from NTT, it's on that spreadsheet.
Yeah.
What I meant was explicitly, is dynamic config handling any of it, or is this other brigade going to be covering all of it? Because there was this synchronization or the reconciliation.
It's a good question. So we got that list while the dynamic config subsystem was still working towards their V1. So I guess we kind of decided, let's leave them alone. Let them do a good job in that. Now, what I was trying to do was set up a deployment or whatever, a production kind of deployment brigade that will take on some of these items and maybe push a few items back and maybe push a few items to the dynamic config brigade.
Yeah, so
that was the plan. But as I just mentioned, there's not a lot of interaction right now, and I also think that the dynamic config brigade is at this point still defining what needs to happen for.
Yeah, well, that's right. Well, the original dynamic config brigade right now still needs to continue to be focused on AM tools and on the open config models, and then on what we would like to do is start up a new basically new team of people focused on finishing the southbound adapters and on the config store. But I think that has not been formulated yet. So right now, basically, the old brigade should continue, and like I said, I haven't even received confirmation on that, to kind of work more on the AM tools open config. So I think the NTT's requirements are right now in limbo still a little bit, which is I would like the NTT actually to step up and start.
We've asked them to at least point us to potential contributors for this kind of work, because we're not taking it on as is, you know, it's not fully our responsibility.
And we really can't take it on anyway until the foundation is.
Okay. Okay, the OpenStack folks, so the student folks have added stories. Northbound?
Sorry, I was muted. I don't think there's really, there are lots of important things to do now. The matter is who does quest time and knowledge to do those things. So I guess we're stopped for now. I'm looking for a person from the community that can help with meters, to use meters in intent framework. But I would like that the same people, that is Giant, that require that are the same that contribute to it, which is not happening. So I'm working on this, and I'll come back on this point offline.
Okay.
For me, just fix the single table pipeline to support new compiler.
Oh, sorry, Ian. The other thing is, there's the work, of course, that Jordan is doing. So once that work will be done for the resource service, we'll be able to possibly do a better bandwidth reservation both in the intent framework and in VPLS.
Okay. And then gRPC?
Yeah, you probably will scoot up.
Okay, so for gRPC, we got, our blocker is gone now, so hopefully that will mean we can make some more progress on these. A lot of them are still pending and still sort of pending refactoring after the changes that came in with the rules. So, yeah, I wish there was a slightly more substantial update, but basically, I'm hoping we can start merging these in now that we have the appropriate build tools and we can start setting up a testing framework for this.
Yeah. I mean, in the blocker here, I mean, there was a bug.
The bug stuff is, yeah, working.
Good.
Yep.
Cool.
Okay. And then you guys have your work week for that next.
Yeah, that'll be next sprint.
Not the last week of the sprint.
Oh yeah, it is the last week of this one.
I did not know the bounds.
So
Okay.
it's
Yeah, ours
the third week.
be-
It's
yeah.
the third week.
Okay, so
So are you guys okay in terms of work items? Since
I think so.
there's a week. Okay.
I think we have, in terms of scheduling for the work week, or like is it what we'll
No,
do?
yeah, in terms of what you're committing to, since all of your brigade is going to be out for a week.
I may do some updating. Depending on,
Okay. Yeah, maybe just.
what's pending and what is sort of stage.
Okay.
Well, a lot of those are highly parallelizable, right? The first set of,
Well, I mean, the first 5 of them are already in, just awaiting refactor. The metering group are new, and the documentation for testing needs to be done. But other than that, this stuff is already well on its way.
Are those all 5-point stories?
So I think they were each person's first one, so I assume they would take longer.
Okay. Build-in package.
You're good.
So for building package, there's the first story is the repo experimentation. This one is more or less going to be done by Zach, and it's going to be implementing the first few steps of the plan that was presented to the TST and then again to the release planning session. The next one is Vishwa's story. He wanted to get a better understanding of the way that protobufs are built by the gRPC brigade. And the third one is Vishwa's going to be looking into enabling a mechanism for building the class files for Eclipse. When the second 2 stories are done, that'll unblock the obsolescence story. Which is great.
I didn't hear that. Unblock what?
Deleting the POM files from the source tree. The Maven POM files.
You said finishing the last 2 items will unblock another item, but it wasn't clear what that one was. And you're saying it was deleting the POM files, but I don't see that listed.
Right. So that's not listed in the sprint yet because the second 2 stories need to be finished before the POM file story can be tackled.
Oh, okay. Oh, that's kind of interesting. Got it.
Okay. Teaching brigade. So the teaching brigade is working on a beginner's guide. The modules are modules within that guide, so module 1.4, module 1.5. So what you see is they're working on adding content for those modules.
Do we have any reason to believe that they will actually sort of be, using a correct sort of recommended procedure for this stuff, or will they be doing the same thing that sort of Luke and I did before, which is try to reverse engineer it or just trial and error until you get something that works?
So they're going to be doing the tutorials for ONOS build. So
Yeah, that didn't answer the question, actually.
yes, I don't know if that
they're
we've
going to be
had
using the documentation that's there and then enhancing the documentation.
I see. So the answer is, I guess, no or not yet, or we might have to look at that.
Well, it's a chicken and egg problem, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I think it's a dependency on some of the stuff that you mentioned before, like moving some of the dev tools into like distribution and installation tools.
Yeah, well, they don't necessarily need to depend on that. Those other tools are more of a nicety than a necessity.
I guess so, but it'll all be kind of wasted effort. For example, if they document a method which becomes obsolete and which is actually really not the recommended approach, right?
No, I don't think they're going to be doing that. I think the introduction of the tools from the dev toolkit or test toolkit into the runtime is not going to significantly deform the process. It's just going to make some things easier. And so
I think it might automate it so that you wouldn't have to do the stuff by hand, I suppose. And some of I guess I don't know for sure, but I guess I'll take your word for it that it's not going to change significantly and that what we have is pretty close to the right way to do it, even though we didn't necessarily know that when we read it.
Yep.
I think Bob has a good point. So what we can do is we can sync up with the teaching brigade, make sure they understand the changes that are coming in, and make sure they account for it.
Yeah, but I think since Andrea is on there, he's fairly familiar with how things go.
It's just Andrea is not at this meeting, so we just need
Sure.
to update him at
Yeah,
the stand-up or something. Okay, P4, Carmela?
Yes, can you hear me?
A little bit faintly.
I can hear you really well,
Yeah.
Carmela.
Now, better?
Yes.
Better.
Okay. So the first item is from the last sprint. So it's related to the interfaces that we need to have protocol independence in the core, and this is under review. The next two tickets are related to refactoring existing scripts to install P4 tools and also to use BMV2 with Mininet. The difference is that now those tools are based on P4 runtime. And yes, then we have stories related to building P4 runtime using the stuff Aaron's have been working on, so the gRPC rules. And then we have implementation of classes defined before in the core interfaces. Same for the table entries. So this story has no assignee because the goal is to find someone from the brigade, so a brigade member. Then there's 3 stories from Andrea, who's not here and asked me to speak for him. So the first 2 are from the previous sprint, but I believe these 2 items, so the general device provider and the gRPC transport controller, it's not just a matter of code reviews. I think that during the code reviews, a number of design concerns have been raised. So I think there's some implementation work to be done. Also so the third item is actually still related to the gRPC controller. And then I'll let E speak about his story, and then the last 2 are related to again, they have no SCNE, so they're related to porting P4 programs, the existing P4 program from the BMV2 demo from P4 14 to P4 16. And also implementing the flow rule translator. The last item, it's 8 points, because I think it will take the whole sprint. I created 2 subtasks. I don't know if that's enough.
We may want to break it down some more, so maybe the different brigade members can pick up.
So you're saying instead of having 2 subtasks, of having 2 stories?
Yeah, because it may span more than a sprint if the folks that are picking them up aren't familiar with this.
Okay. Well, I'll do that right away. Okay.
Because we had talked about the few to get the current BMV2 working, and then there's the rest of it. Maybe it would make sense to start breaking it up in terms of the criterion you want to match and.
Yeah, makes sense. Makes sense. Yeah.
If I understand Carmelo correctly, he did break it down already. It's just rather broken into subtasks rather than stories.
But I think the problem is that you cannot, if I understand well, you cannot have different assignees for a subtask. You assign the story to someone. Yes.
And then the story should fit within a sprint, and I think the concern is with folks coming on, this may span more than a sprint. So if we break them down into different stories, it may be easier for different folks to pick it up and try to finish each of the smaller stories within the sprint.
But that's not really the issue. Carmelo really nailed it, right? Which is that there's some bug in Jira that prevents you from assigning subtasks to different people.
You can do that. Subtasks can be. Yeah, they just don't show up as different entries in the backlog.
I should never try. That was my understanding. You cannot assign.
You click on that, you don't need to see the either super task or subtask.
It seems to me to be sensible to have the whole thing be as a story, because that's sort of a story, and then have multiple subtests.
Actually, I think I was wrong. I just tried to assign one subtask to me, and and I don't show up as the assignee for the whole story. So I think it works assigning subtasks to different people.
The thing is, they won't show up in the swim lanes, and they also subtasks can't be assigned story points. But they can be assigned to individuals.
It all boils down to our abuse of the story point system.
But anyways, I mean, I can split it into 2 stories, so it's up to you again.
I think it would be good just because some of the folks are going to be unfamiliar.
Okay. Okay, I'll do that.
I don't think it has nothing to do with familiarity. It's limitations and bugs in Jira and of our workflow.
But I think here we're saying that the work is going to be a sprint long, and my concern is that Brigade is just starting up, which means I don't know that anyone can pick it up and actually finish it in the sprint, right?
Right, but it's certainly okay to have long-running stories that span multiple sprints. We do that frequently.
The story is should be constrained to a sprint. That's the definition.
It's not really a definition. Definition is like a user. I mean, from a user story is supposed to be basically a use case describing some sort of functionality from the perspective of the user. It has it doesn't have any relationship to whether it'll fit in a sprint or not. Just saying.
I think that was our last Brigade. Anything else?
It's necessary to use the custom BMV to hash algorithm for your example, or can we use existing hash algorithm in V1 model?
So the question is if we can use another hash function than the one used currently in the P4 program.
Okay, because if you use the exist hash algorithm, we just use the compile translate of 14 to 16.
Mm-hmm. So the reason why those P4 programs needs to be ported is that right now, if I try to compile the existing program, so ECMP and WCMP with the P4C compiler, it doesn't work for a bug of the P4C compiler that doesn't actually know to properly translate those programs automatically to P416. So instead of relying to the guys developing the P4C compiler to fix that bug, I think it makes sense for us to port those programs to P416 also, so that we have a better understanding of the new language.
Okay, so it's the reason not just the algorithm of the hashing function?
I'm not sure I get the question about the hash function. I mean, I'm just sure I understand what's the problem.
Okay, maybe we can discuss offline.
Yeah, okay.
Email. Yeah, thanks.
Okay, thank you.
But I'm also a fan of switching to P416. Like P414 is, well, P416 is a huge improvement, and we should really use it going forward.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks everyone. I think that's it for the signing.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye, Carmel. Thanks for staying up.
Bye.
Yes.
Bye.
It's only 6 something.
Luca's the one who was developing the night before.
That is very good.